Okay, we're gonna get started. We are drawing with value today. We're gonna do a fun little drawing exercise. So here we go. We're gonna start out by adding lots of different organic shapes to our paper. So organic shapes, again, are some sort of shapes that are rounded and blobbish, and you usually find them more in nature, and they're extra healthy. So anyways, I'm gonna begin by adding my organic shapes on my paper. So I have one drawn. The next one I'm going to draw, I'm not going to let it touch the first one, but it's going to get kind of close. And I'm not drawing teeny tiny little baby shapes. I'm making sure that they're a little bit bigger. But again, not touching. You can have a couple that are little, but you really don't want to go too small. This one looks like a tooth. So again, I'm trying to get these close, not letting them touch. And I'm almost there. All right, so we are doing a lot of different layers with this project. So this is layer number 1. If you really kind of imagine this like you were taking a piece of Swiss cheese and you were looking through it at all the different holes going farther and farther back, that's kind of like the idea we're going with here. So we need to start by adding value to this layer. Now, we've got all these different holes, and the parts that are in the middle, I call that the bridge. So the bridge is going to actually stay white, this top bridge at least. The first layer bridge is white, so we're not doing anything to it. We are going to be shading on the inside of our shapes. So before we start shading, let's flip our paper over and get the feel for what we want with this paper, with this value, with the shading, etc., whatever. So what we're doing is we are going to start by pushing down really hard with our pencil so that you get a really dark line. So the more pressure on your pencil, the darker the line. And as I back away and move away from that line, I'm going to get lighter and lighter and lighter. So I have a range of value. Okay, so what should happen with our value, and you see me doing this now, is I'm trying to blend it a little bit. So it goes from dark, slightly lighter to light. What you don't want to see when you're doing this is you don't want to have, here is dark, here is light. So right here between the two, you can see the line separating, and we don't want to see that. We want it to gently blend, okay? Now on the front, when we shade, this is going to happen pretty quick. So what I mean by that is it's going to be dark, and then I'm going to get to light quickly. So that means this is about as far as we're going to be shading. Okay? So this is way too long. I'm going to go way too far into my shape. We don't want to go that far. So this is what we're looking for. And we want to try to make sure it's blended. So what we're going to be doing to this shape, with these shapes, is we are going to be taking our pencil, going along the inside, getting dark and light, going to light, dark, getting lighter, dark, getting lighter. So we're going to be doing this all the way around until we have it set and done. Okay, so I'm actually going to pause the video, and in case you need extra reminders, again, it's just push down really hard, get light, push down hard, get light, all the way around until you're done with that layer. Okay, so I'm pausing the video, and I'll see you for step whatever we're on. Okay, so I've got every single part of it shaded along the inside. Now we can move on. So this part's a little bit tricky to explain, so I'm going to do my best. But what we're basically doing is we see through these holes. These holes are getting farther and farther back. The bridge, the area that is just going to be left white, we can't really see through. So what's going to happen is we're going to be drawing more organic shapes, just like we did before, trying to get them close but not touching. But whenever we hit a bridge, we have to jump. So I know that sounds confusing. So picture it this way. Let's say this tape is one of my shapes. So if I set it down, all I'm going to see in here is this line going through one of my shapes, this other line going through another shape, and this line coming down here. I wouldn't see through the bridge. So it's like my shapes are continuing around, and they are still connected just like they are up top, but you can't see parts of them. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's say I want a shape that is kind of curving around, and it comes around this way and kind of comes up, and then off the paper it comes back to connect. So what I would do is I would go to this shape on the inside. I would start to draw my line. Oh, I hit a bridge. So you see that I stopped drawing here, and I'm going to jump, continue all the way. Oh, I hit the bridge again, so I stop. Now I'm pretending that off my paper this is going to continue around until it gets back to the beginning. Alright, so let me keep doing that. Maybe in here I'm going to have a shape that comes down. Okay, I'm going to jump to this shape. So you're going to be filling in the second, oh, this one's going to jump in here, the second space. Oh, this would come around. Oh, okay, then it's going to loop back. So your second bridge, so this is our first bridge, our second layer's bridge, still should be kind of skinny like this. That means you really got to fill that space in. So we don't want a lot of blank space in the middle. We do want these shapes to kind of come close, just like we did on the first layer. Here. Okay. And sometimes I get a little lost, so I have to try to find my way. That's why you see me kind of coming back and where is this going? Oh yeah, over here, I guess. Okay, almost done, I think. And I think I should have, oh, this line, shump. Maybe he's gonna come around like that, and then it'll come back off the paper. Okay, now we've got our second layer all drawn. What we're gonna be doing with our second layer is wait a second, I want to add some more. Oh, never done. Yeah. What we're going to do to our second layer is actually the exact same thing that we did to our first layer, only we're starting to get a little bit more complicated. You are going to see me taking another piece of paper, by the way, to put my hand on it, because as I go through, I'm going to smudge it. I don't really want to smudge it right now. So what I am doing with this layer is, this is the inside of one of my new shapes, okay? So here's the bridge, here's the inside of my new shape. Since this is the inside of my new shape, I do the same thing I did before. So I shade it in. This is the inside of a new shape. I'm not going to shade the bridge. Actually, we are eventually, but just wait for it. More on that later. Okay, so I got one all shaded in right here. The shape continues in through there. So gotta follow it. All right. So you are going to shade in those new shapes. I'm going to be pausing the video in a second to do that with you. And then when I turn the video back on, I'll be ready for the next step. Okay, here we go. Okay, I have my second layer all the way shaded, and now what I need you to pay attention to is the bridge, the second bridge. So the first bridge is on top, all right? The second bridge is below. We're actually going to shade the second bridge, but not as extreme as you have been shading. It's just going to be one tone, and we are going to be doing this extra light. So when I do this, I'm barely touching, and here's a little tip for you. If you have a hard time not putting pressure on your pencil, I suggest getting a dull pencil. Not completely dull, obviously, but slightly dull, because then it's harder to make a really dark line. Sorry, it's easier to make a really dark line. So I'm going through the second bridge, the second layer's bridge. I'm very carefully coloring it one shade, which is light. And I do have this piece of paper. I keep it underneath my hand as I'm going, so I don't smudge everything. Trying to make sure I'm coloring nicely, shading nicely, and whatnot, so forth. I'm trying to stay in the lines as well. And you'll notice that as I am doing this, I do tend to move my paper around. It's just much easier to do it this way. I feel like you can keep things much neater. So basically the thought behind this is that as you go farther and farther, as you keep looking back and back inside these shapes, it's getting farther and farther away, deeper into the cheese, let's say. So since we are looking farther and farther in, things would start to get darker and darker. So that's the thought behind this. Checking everything. I'm trying to keep my pencil lines also consistently going in one direction right now too. So if I colored over it going in the opposite direction, it's going to look a little bit sloppy. Make sure you're checking that you're not coloring on the top bridge as you go throughout. Luckily though, we're working really light, so it's not that hard to erase it. It's just kind of a pain in the bottom to have to go back and erase everything. Okay, so I have the first layer set, the second layer is now set, now I'm ready to go to the third layer. So yes, we have to make a third layer. So just like we did when we finished the first layer, we added some more organic shapes that we would see through all these holes. So we already colored the bridge. The bridge we don't want to cross. So what we need to do next, remember I'm keeping this, I'm taking it with me. A magazine paper works really well because it doesn't catch, it's a little bit slippery, so it doesn't really catch on all your pencil lead, but I have this handy, so I'm just going to use it. So let's see. Alright, so you do see that I like to practice before I put my line down. So this time we've got lots of bridges to jump over. And as I am doing this, you see me lifting my pencil and just kind of planning out where it's going to come back without it connecting or running into or drawing through any of those areas. Man, this is gonna be complicated. I would just recommend, as you're going through, asking yourself, is this a bridge or is this one of the holes? Oh, it's a hole. I should carry a shape through it. Oh, this is a bridge. No, I need to stop. Almost done, I think. Okay. So I've got my new layer. And remember, this is where it's going to start to get even crazier. So we're going to shade, and then we're going to shade our bridge. So we got to shade our inside shapes. So remember, this is my first layer, it stays white. This is my second layer's bridge, it stays this color. Then you got to find your new shapes, shape on the inside. So when I say shade, shade on the inside. There we go. So this is one of my new shapes. Okay, so it does get tricky at this point. All right, I will have a tricky time coming through and finding them too, but you just gotta pay attention really and check, double check before you really start going crazy. Just be checking and persistent with it. Alright, I'm going to be pausing this again so we can get this part shaded. And I will see you momentarily. Okay, now that I have the next layer all shaded and ready to go, I have to find my third bridge. The first bridge is white, the second bridge got a little bit darker, the third bridge is going to get a little bit darker than the second bridge, but you should see a difference in between the two. So I'm going to be pushing down a little bit harder so that they look different. So you should be comparing them as you go along. And this part is getting complicated. You've got a lot to pay attention to, so be careful. All right. I know that I'm going to be working back into this after I get all of my layers completed, and I am going to be darkening some things I don't have dark enough. So be mentally prepared for that. Okay. Trying to figure out, is this a bridge? Yes. Yes it is. And if it's not, well, I will just go with it. Here we go. Again, my pencil is not perfectly sharp right now, so I'm not trying to get it as dark as possible. I want it to be darker than the first layer, but not incredibly dark. Don't forget to have that paper with you. When we're doing a lot of shading with pencil, we smudge a lot. Oh, I'm almost done. Okay, I'm checking through, making sure I've got all the layers nicely shaded. Alright. Now that we have done with this layer, we have one more to go. So, a very, very, very last layer, same thing. I'm going to go to those new shapes, add some new organic spots. Okay, this part is getting really hard. It's hard to figure out where to put these things. Okay, last time to shade the inner shapes. Alright, now that I'm done drying, the last stage, here's where it's going to get a little tricky again. The bridges, again, we're going to shade a step darker than our last layer, but the middle part that we've been doing the drop down effect on the drop shadow, that layer is actually, instead of getting a drop shadow, it's going to be completely black. So, for example, let's go over here. This is my inner shape. So, my inner shape, I'm going to color it as dark as I can, which means I'm pushing down. I would be careful with this step because it's easy to go too fast. And when you go too fast, it's just going to mess it all up. So the last step is a very careful, actually close to the last step. We're not quite there yet, we're almost there. You got to be really careful with it, because here's where you could completely mess up your picture and ruin it, especially if you rush. And I know when we get close to being done, we're excited, so we're like, yeah, hurry it up. And then you kill it. So, let's not do that. This is going to be inside. So I'm speeding up the video here, and I am coloring those areas black. I'm trying to get it as dark as possible. You'll see how that goes. I'm not actually coloring this fast, so don't think that I'm sprinting through it. But you will see what it's going to look like when it's all the way done. So stand by. And just like that, I am done. I have colored all the areas really dark in the background. I have checked it. I'm ready to abandon my work officially. So I have signed it in the corner, and I'm going to declare myself done. So good job to me, and good job to everybody else. Go team!